What's up, DIY queens? It's your design bestie, Cara Newhart, and this is Make Space.
Hello, and welcome back to Make Space. Today's episode is all about travel and how travel can inspire architecture and design. This topic is so interesting, and there's so many angles to this. But basically, I just got back from a trip to Europe, and I was feeling very inspired, and also kind of assessing like how I was going to translate the inspiration into my house. And there's a lot of levels. There's like paint colors I saw that I liked. There's physical items I bought. There's just experiences that created kind of like a new perspective for me that is changing how I think about things. And so I thought this would be a really fun topic to break down practical steps for how to do that, but also give you some fun insights because I visited a couple really cool museums around design and architecture that I think have some really cool ideas where, especially if you didn't go to design school and study like the history of design in depth, this is like the Cliff Notes version, like the fun version that will help you kind of use it in your house versus having to spend years studying furniture styles and how they evolved. Yeah, so basically, I spent a week in London and then popped over to Paris, which is ridiculously easy. Having grown up in the US and never been to Europe, I'm so jealous. Like, you just hop on a train and there you are in another country. Like, it took everything in me not to just stay and not get on the flight back because I had the best time and I want to live there. But essentially, I think travel plays a huge role in expanding our worldview as we experience new things and new places. These experiences shape us and can even help us update like our belief systems, our preconceived notions, and how we view the world. And I think as we take these new ideas that we have, this new inspiration, this new perspective back with us, and we start to integrate that into our life, making changes to your home can be such a cool, practical, and tangible way to do that, whether it's just feeling inspired and making changes so that things feel fresher, or whether it's like a different way of living that we've never experienced that we're now going to use going forward. I think the silliest and simplest example is when we were in London, the apartment we stayed at had no paper towels, and there was like no one was going to be giving us paper towels. And it was just so funny to realize how dependent I am on paper towels. Like, I literally make toast and then put it on a paper towel instead of a plate, or use them constantly to wipe things down. And so it was a funny moment of like not realizing something so seemingly insignificant, how like dependent I was on it in my daily routine, and then not having it, how much I actually don't need it. And then it brought up all kinds of things around like, oh, they're actually bad for the environment. And what if I didn't use them as much? And something so simple that is like, definitely not like a key lesson from traveling to Europe is like paper towel usage. But it was for me because it was like such a piece of my own daily routine. And we talk a lot about how assessing our daily routine and finding design elements that match up with that in our house is how to live in our house as well and create spaces that support us. And so it was funny, just little things here and there, from paint colors to things I bought to things that I did, and realizing like how much our travel can change the way we live in our home and help us evolve it for the better so that those experiences and insights are things that last versus just like you go on vacation, you have a really great time, and then you kind of struggle to recreate like the good vibes or the good memories or the good experience. I think having come from corporate where it was like, you got a set amount of vacation and you just work. And then you get to take 2 weeks off and have a magical like beach getaway and then back to work. It's interesting because it felt very separate and very like this and then that, and then they don't intermix. And I think in America, with a society tailored to that style of vacation, we don't often have little moments every day where we're expanding our perspective or shifting our perspective. It's just kind of like you finally get a break and you get to do all this magical stuff and then back to the real world and it all disappears. And then you just wait till it can happen again. That's very philosophical. Let's go into some practical tips for how to, when you travel, take inspiration back with you, whether it's literal design elements, literal items, or just a change in perspective, how to use it to shape your house. And then I also want to cover what I saw at the Louvre Museum and some interesting insights about trends. And yeah, so this will be really good, I hope. So the first thing when it comes to taking insight, design elements, inspiration back from travels is the actual visual inspo. Like you go somewhere, you see something you like, and you're like, I want that. Obvious examples were paint colors. I don't know how many times I stopped to take a picture of a random building because I liked the paint color. And I was like, ooh, I need that. And people were so confused because it's like that building's not important or normal to be doing that. But there I was. And then another one I really like is restaurants. I feel like restaurants and hotels, commercial spaces, are way more creative than residential spaces because they have to like capture you and create an experience. And so using restaurants and stores and hotels as design inspiration can be so fun because things are so unique and different. That's something I've loved doing for a really long time, traveling or at home, but I don't know, they can be louder and more over the top and more themed and more like saturated design styles. And so it's really fun to get to experience those. I know I'm always taking pictures of like lobbies or like furniture or like art that I saw. And so that's the first tip is just take photos of visual inspiration that you're seeing, put it on your Pinterest, save it for later. Even if you don't quite know why or how you would specifically incorporate it into your house, just collecting visual inspiration that you can save is free, is really fun, and is really cool, a cool way to look back on your trip that you're not just capturing like yourself next to famous things like the Eiffel Tower, but you're capturing your experience and kind of like what you're seeing that you like. And that's what's so cool about having your phone is you can take a million pictures wherever you go. And I also just think it's so cool when your Pinterest board is filled with things you actually saw somewhere. Like online inspo is amazing. There's a million things you can pin and that is all great. But it's even more special when you actually like found the inspo and like took the picture and you're like saving it to inspire you. So yeah, collect visual inspo is the first thing. The second thing is physical items. So obviously sourcing things from your traveling that have a personal connection, which is such a cool way to have like a thread to tie back to that experience. This is like the oldest approach of doing this. Like people used to travel and bring back things for people to see. I think it's just like a very ancient human phenomenon of traveling and bringing things back to show people and tell stories about. And I think in more modernly, this looks like bringing back items that help tell the story of your travels that can shape your style. So I know we've done a few episodes on like how to uncover your style for your home and how to not use like just pick a style that you opt into like farmhouse and then it's like chippy paint, this color, wood tones, this, and you're actually building your own style. And that can be really hard to do unless you have a starting point. And I like to recommend that your starting point is your story. So your story of your life, of your experiences, of where you've lived, of what you've done, that is like such a great place to begin when it comes to creating your personal style and your creative perspective and your creative voice. And so as you travel and you create memories and you create stories to tell people, you can bring back physical items that either remind you of those, that play a big part in those. And it's just so much more special to decorate with things that you've collected than that you just bought. Things that have a story are really special. And I say this all the time, but like in a world where anything can arrive on your door within 2 days with free shipping, it becomes less about like the aesthetic of the item and more about the meaning. Like it's a beautiful thing and it has a cool story and it has this really interesting fact about it versus this is really cute and I got it off Amazon, which there's definitely a place for that too. But I think when we can balance those things, we're creating a home that reflects us versus is something that anyone could go buy themselves too. So that's just more special. A tip for this would be focusing on like local and handmade items, even more special, to have something that someone local made. But you definitely don't have to do this. One of the things I bought was it's like a huge chunky book of like Louis Vuitton runway photos, and it's just chunky. It's like the perfect coffee table book, and it was from the H&M home store, which I did not realize are super robust over there, but not so much here. Here, like you go into an H&M, if it's multi-leveled and it's like the home stuff is way at the top, like in the attic tucked away. In London and Paris, they had like actual H&M stores, and the stuff is so cute and so affordable. So I got this book because it wasn't available in the US, and it's big and chunky, and it's like orange, burnt orange, which is the perfect color for the house I'm doing. So I thought it'd be really fun to put it on the coffee table. So definitely not something handmade, but it's fun for me. So in terms of displaying these things, this is a great way to fill out built-ins. If you have built-ins or bookcases, those can be so hard to style because it's really hard to get the balance of like things looking polished and not overly cluttered. Like putting too many things on a bookcase can just make things look busy and cluttered, and there's too many knickknacks. But I think when you style with items that you've sourced, it's like, it's artful and it's also interesting and it's also your story. So you're not just going and buying a bunch of decor to fill the bookcase to make it not look empty. Sidebar, the way to fix bookcases is go bigger, like larger scale items and fewer things that are larger is always going to make it look more polished versus tiny little knickknacks. So there's a tip there. Another great place is coffee table. Basically displaying these items out where they're visible and in a place where when you have people over, it can be like a conversation piece. It can be like interesting to be able to share your story, because part of inviting people into your house is sharing your life and your story with them. And when you have a physical item that people can notice and be like, oh, what is that? It just creates like opportunity for conversation and connection. That's, extra special. So I've written down story here. So more tips on that is basically telling your story in your space. That's how you can define your style. It can also be literal. So it can either be objects that are, like a piece of art or a shell or something that has a story behind it, but doesn't necessarily say like, I got this from Europe. But it can also be literal in the sense that you could do photos, like you could frame photos that you took on your vacation and put them on your walls. It doesn't have to be a photo of you like next to the Eiffel Tower, like, geez. It could be like you take a landscape photo, a more artful photo that's not necessarily like literal, like here's me on vacation. It's like, here's what I saw, or a landscape, or something up close, like a doorknob hardware that's really cool. And printing that out and framing it as part of a gallery wall, or there's like a lot of cool online programs for free that you can make a photo look like a painting. So you could take a photo, upload it through one of those, process it, and then print it on like a poster paper, and it would look like a painting that you got. Lots of ideas around that, but just telling your story in a way that can be literal, doesn't have to be. So that's tips on that. And then more around like the function and the routine of things. I think anytime you're going somewhere new, you're staying in a new location, you don't have access to everything that you normally do on a daily basis. So it automatically throws you out of the rut of your daily routine. Like you're having to eat different things, you're having to go different places. And so these daily routine interrupts, like my paper towel story, can help just like give you a new perspective on something, even if it's as small as paper towels, or it could be as big as, obviously in Europe, we did a ton of walking instead of driving. And so that made me realize like how in America we make working out like its own little isolated thing where it's like you do this and then you go work out and there's a set time for that, when in Europe, it's like my workout was integrated into the activities that I was doing. Like I worked out by walking to the next activity, and how much easier that was because I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have shame around it. Like, you got to go work out now. You're eating a lot of bread. It was just like part of what I was doing naturally. And so those types of things were really interesting to see, just like cultural differences that I didn't even really consider. And how like I'm over here with this whole big struggle and shame spiral of like trying to make myself go to the gym, when over there it's like you just walk places and it's like not a question. So these types of things can really create big shifts in your mindset and also inspire you to want to recreate those feelings and those routines at home. So like now it's like, how can I make that part of my life more? Like maybe I should get a bike and start cycling to work. Like there's a mile between my house and the project house I'm renovating, and I drive that every day. But it's like, maybe I could walk, or maybe I could get a bike, or just little things like, how could I integrate these new shifts of things that I really enjoyed and really liked but wasn't doing at home, and how can I make space for those? It's almost like that's what we're doing here. And it can be as small as using less paper towels, or, you know, maybe I go buy a new set of dishcloths and actually wash them and have a dedicated basket for them to go in, and create a new routine around this new routine that I want to happen in my life. So that was really interesting, is realizing that design inspiration and home inspiration isn't just the literal items and the literal elements like paint colors. It's also how we live in a space. Changing that by being thrown into a new environment can help us like really reassess like what we're doing and why we're doing it, and then make small changes that make things better, which is really just so approachable and such a cool way to learn. It reminds me of like the saying, like if you read every book there was about swimming, you knew all the strokes, you knew everything about swimming, you're not going to know how to swim unless you're thrown into a pool and feeling the water and knowing what it feels like to do that. And so it's like we can assess and get in our head and try to like mentally work out like, here's what I should do. But sometimes just being thrown into a new experience and feeling it and being like, oh, I could do this and it's so easy, is just a better way to learn. And so the focus isn't on learning like mental assessing, and it's more just on like, this experience made me realize this, and now I'm going to do this. And it's just easier. So I thought that was really cool. As you can tell, I did a lot of assessing on my trip to come up with all these insights, because I had a lot of time on the train with snacks to think about it. And then the next thing, so we tried to go, I'm not a planner. Like by no means was this trip planned out with an itinerary where this day we're going to do this. Like literally 2 days before we were like, we should go to Paris. And we just like booked it and went, not realizing that the Louvre would be super busy and you would not be able to get in. I thought we were just going to like waltz up and buy a ticket. Like, no, the line was, it looked like days long. I'm sure it was like a couple hours, but long enough where I was like, we're going to be here one night. Like, I don't want to waste time standing in line. I'll come back when I plan ahead. So we started walking towards like the mall that's connected to the Louvre, and then saw this sign for like the Museum of the Decorative Arts, which is like a section of the Louvre dedicated to like interior design, furniture, and decorating. But like, hello, that's my jam. And there was like no line, which was suspicious, but we're like, okay, we'll just like try it. So went there instead, which happened to be like the best. I think I would have enjoyed it more than seeing the Mona Lisa, because that's like a teeny tiny postage stamp on a wall in a crowded room. Great painting, but I've seen it a million times copied places, where this was like, it was just really, more up my alley, I guess is the way to say it. So essentially this is the museum of like showing design and furniture over time, different eras, different furniture. And I studied this a lot when I did my certificate program for interior design. It was like the history of furniture making and building and decorating and interior design, and getting to see different pieces like in person that were like from that era was just like extra special. All of these insights is encapsulated in, I guess the topic would be history. So like by engaging in the history of a new culture or place that you've never been, it can be so expansive, because I think on one hand, it illuminates like similarities and common ground, like things that aren't so different, like going somewhere with a new culture has grown in an entirely different trajectory from the culture you're in, can be like, wait, there's actually so many similarities just in us being human, of like things that aren't that different. But then also illuminating things that are really different, like different ways of doing things, to be like, oh, like it's just, yeah, it shows you new paths and new approaches. And so I think by engaging in the history, it's like, I'm not a history buff by any means. I think it's because I have a horrible memory when it comes to like names and dates of people I've never met. Like they just don't stick in my brain as well. And so I've never been like that into history. I'm interested in stories here and there, or cool things if it's right in front of me. But as far as like memorizing the history, hasn't been something I've been interested in. But I think engaging with a different culture's history, especially one like Europe that's informed so much of the US, it was fun. I enjoyed that part. But anyway, back to this museum. That's what we were supposed to be talking about. So basically, I visited, it's called the Louvre Decorative Arts Museum. And you kind of walk through like from old to now, different design. And you can kind of see how design has evolved when it comes to furniture, lighting, like glassware, art, wall paneling, everything design and decor. And this was interesting because, well, first of all, if you don't know, like your brief overview of design history is that France was kind of like the furniture design capital of the world for many years. And interior design, the way it used to work is basically it was like handed down from the king. The king had like a furniture designer, a furniture maker, and he basically like had his preferences on what he wanted stuff to look like. They made it, and then everyone kind of aspired to that design because it was the king and royalty was doing it. So, which is so interesting. Like trends were based on what royalty was doing. And then as we got away from that, it kind of shifted to like celebrity. Like you see celebrities have things that you want. And then it shifted to like luxury. You see people with more money than you doing things and you want that. So the way trends have worked is so interesting in that regard. And I think now it's online. You see someone online doing something that you want, and it's kind of lost that air of like looking up to someone with more than you. Like the king is in charge and he has more power, and so we're doing what he likes. And then celebrities are famous, and so we want what they have. And then luxury is someone that's rich, and so we want what they have. And now with social media, we can kind of look at the person next to us and be like, oh, they're doing that, and that would work for my house, and I want that too. Which there always has been some element of that with like keeping up with the Joneses. Like, what are the neighbors getting? Like, do I need one too to keep up? But in terms of trend cycles, it's interesting to see how trends have evolved in that way in terms of where they're coming from. Another really interesting thing was as you're walking through like each era and seeing like how through time, how things have evolved, what I kind of notice is something I've always known, but like design is a conversation. So basically a trend arises, everyone's talking about it, everyone wants it, everyone's doing it. And then someone steps up and is like, no, and creates kind of like an antithesis to that trend. And then everyone goes over there and is like, okay, now we're doing this. Now we love it. Now, and then it's like this back and forth and ebb and flow of like a wave of something becoming really popular and then someone kind of going against the wave and against the current and then steering everyone in that direction. And so it's very interesting in that way. And I think design has like this long history of oscillating between function and beauty. And so it's like a pendulum swinging. Like we have eras that are very functional and we say, it matters how it works. And then we swing back in the other direction and we say, it matters how it looks. And of course, if you spend any time with me on this podcast, you know that good design is a balance of both. Like it encapsulates functioning well and practicality with being beautiful and being artful. And so great design is both in balance. But as trends arise, we kind of like swing one way or another. And so I guess some examples of this is like, if you think of the Victorian era, so very ornate. So the architecture is very like intricate, very colorful. Like if you've seen like a classic Victorian house, they're like really colorful. So it's super ornate, super opulent, frills and all kinds of things. Then we kind of swing the pendulum from beauty being the focus back to modernism. So if you know who Frank Lloyd Wright is, he's kind of like the father of this era. So basically we go from the Victorian Victorian era to then industrial age. Now we have factories and we're mass producing things. And so all that fancy stuff is harder to mass produce. So we swing across to the other side and we go with modernism. Everything's sleek and it's functional and it's practical and there's clean lines and it's easier to make in a factory. And so we're in modernism. And then we swing back the other way with Art Deco. So think like Gatsby era. So things are ornate and gold and arches and curves and artful again, like old Hollywood. And then we swing back again with mid-century modern, so sleek and clean lines and very functional. And so as the pendulum swings back and forth through these cycles, the trend becomes shorter. So it used to be like decades you were in one era and then you swung back to the other side. Then it was like a decade, like 10 years. And then it was like 5 years. And now it's going back and forth super quick to the point where you have trends occurring at the same time, like minimalism and farmhouse. Like minimalism is like, we don't like things and we want the space to be very clean and we want nothing. We want it to be so functional because we're focusing on our life being the focus and our experiences being the focus. And then farmhouse, which is like, we're collecting vintage things and there's more items. And so as the trend cycles, I think because of the internet, have gotten shorter because we don't have to wait for everyone to talk about it and get exhausted talking about it and go through like the press and news cycles just being longer. Now we're on the internet. So the next day there can be something new just like that. And so you have trends occurring almost simultaneously, which I think is amazing because it means like you have the freedom of choice to be doing anything that you want to do at any given time. It's like there's less of a strong current that you have to push against and fight against if you want to do things your own way. So it's becoming easier to express yourself and your style in your house because the stores aren't selling one kind of thing that's in vogue right now. They're selling everything from every era, and you can buy antiques from other eras. And so I think we live in a time where trends don't matter as much. Like trends, I always say, are just people collectively deciding to try something altogether. And so it can be a great way to try something new. Like if you don't know what to do, you can look to trends to be like, okay, I'll try it. I'll see if I like it. Just the same as when you're learning to paint or you're learning to draw, you look at artist work and you emulate it and you copy it. I don't know if you've done that thing where it's like you draw a grid on like somebody's drawing and then you draw a grid that's blank and then you draw each little square, what's in the grid to show you how to like draw. It's kind of like that where when you're learning to do something, you copy and you emulate and you get the hang of the process. And then you're ready to go on your own and use what you've learned about the process to create your own style. So that's all that trends are. And I think we've talked about this a lot. I think what's coming to mind is the episode with Erica from Peony and Honey. And she's saying like, when I first started, I wanted to be Joanna Gaines and I just did exactly what she did. And I filled my house with that stuff. And then I started learning my own path. That's with anything. And so I think if you're just starting on your home journey and you're feeling confused or empty when it comes to like, what is my style? It's like, get out there and emulate and try out the trends and lean in and go all in and see what it's like. And then after trying it, these experiences will shape what you like and what you don't like. So yeah, that is insights from my trip to Europe, which is something I did so late in life. Like I definitely should have gone earlier, but I also think it was interesting going later. And by later, I mean like I didn't go in college and I didn't have like the, or like as a kid. I waited till I was like a full grown adult with a daughter, and then her coming at age 7 was like, this is so weird that you're doing this so early. But yeah, that's the insights from the trip. That felt very roundabout and convoluted, but it's all intertwined. And I think it's just interesting. So yeah, so there's some themes that apply no matter what, traveling or not. Like your design inspiration is physical items, it's design elements, and it's your experience, your lived experience in your house. And I think when we step outside of our routine with travel, with going to a new place, it just helps us expand our perspective in a way that Pinterest cannot, that just looking at those visual elements can't do for us, because really it's not just about those. Like those are the surface, those are what we see, but underneath it all is how we're living in our house. And so to be able to travel, whether it's to Europe or whether it's to literally a town an hour away for a staycation in an Airbnb that was $100 a night, and it's just putting you in a new environment and a new situation where it can be really expansive. And so next time you travel or go somewhere, I would encourage you to start to notice like how you're feeling inspired, how your routine has changed, and what it means for you. Like how can you take some of that back with you to make your life better and make your house better? So yeah, that's my deeply philosophical episode on travel and interior design and some of the history. I feel like we should definitely do a whole episode in depth about breaking down like trend cycles in history, because it's very interesting to talk about like, especially French furniture, like how it evolved. Like things were chunky and then they were small and then they were chunky again, but curved. And it's like very interesting to see that, which yeah, we'll see about whether we'll do a whole episode. But for now, those are your tips. Have fun on your travels if you have somewhere fun to go for the rest of the summer, or if you're planning something, or if you're just going to do armchair travel, which is maybe watching a Netflix documentary about somewhere you've never been, because that can help too. But yeah, that's what I think. I'll see you next week and talk soon.
Thanks for listening. And if you've got more episodes to catch up on, binge on. Don't let me stop you. But if you've got a second, you should come say hi on Insta at MakeSpacePod. And if you're an overachiever, you can also leave a review and I'll love you forever. If you're new here, hit that follow button to officially become a DIY queen and join all the amazing humans tuning in every week.